the Via Stoica podcast with Brendan and Benny, powered by viastoica.com, your home for coaching, workshops, quotes, and Stoic content that inspires. Welcome to the Via Stoica podcast. My name is Benny. I'm your host for today. And today we're going to talk about the holiday season. So at the day of publishing this episode, it's the 23rd of December. So it's a fitting episode for this time of the year. But this could be practiced at any other time. We have many different holidays, many different special days and whatever. And during the year where these feelings of loneliness and being alone during these special days arise and will make it difficult for people. So today we're going to look at how to navigate the holidays alone and what we can learn from the Stoics and how we can apply Stoic philosophy to help us get through these days, because they are difficult for some people. Well, there's a lot of people in the world are really looking forward to these days. This is one of the special moments of the year where people come together, family and friends, and having special dinner and all of these things. But for a lot of people, this is a very difficult time as well, and especially when you are alone and when it isn't really your choice, or when you want to be alone, but yet the social pressures and all of these other aspects of life will make it more difficult. So that's what we're going to look at today. And first, we're going to start with the difficulty of these times. Again, there's so many people out there, especially when you look on social media and some of the messaging boards or forums, where people keep mentioning that they dreading the holidays, right? The Christmas, the end of the year, New Year's, all of these things where we're socially pushed to come together, to make it into something special. And a lot of people are forced to spend it alone. And I'm spending it alone as well, depending on, that's on my own choice, right? But there's still that voice inside is like, well, you have to do this. You should be spending it with other people. If you're spending it alone, then you're doing it wrong, right? If you're spending it alone, then there's something wrong with you. And that's a lot of the input or the feedback that I get from people, especially when we talk about this holiday season. So there's a lot of things that come into mind when we think about Christmas and whatever other holidays around this time are celebrated. First of all, when people do celebrate it, it has to be perfect, right? This is something that we put what we put on ourselves, that image that this has to be perfect. We have to have the best dinner. We have to make it all look good. Everybody has to show up. Everybody needs to have a good time. This needs to be the evening of the year, right? So this pressure will raise the level and expectancy of this evening or day or days to levels which probably won't be able to meet. So that's one of the things where this pressure comes about, right? So even then, when people are looking forward to it and they are working towards it, they might even during those special days feel lonely, or they might even feel that they can't enjoy it because they are constantly on, right? Because they're constantly looking at what needs to be improved, making sure that everybody's having a good time, and if they're not, trying to fix it here and there. So it's a very difficult time to get through and to navigate. Then again, there's the pressures of not being alone, right? To be alone during a day like Christmas or New Year's or any other of these holidays, it sounds like something is wrong with you, right? There's a stigma on it. You can't be alone during these days. And if you are, then people label you as sad or lonely, or something is wrong with you. Well, there are a lot of people who are, again, as I said, by choice, not alone, or some people, they do choose to be alone. And it doesn't, these special days, as we label them, aren't special for everyone. Some people, they just see them as a day. And a lot of people are happy when these days are gone, when it's January 1st, when it's January 2nd, right? Then the pressure is off. So why do we have this pressure? Why do we keep it towards ourselves? And as we said, with the expectations, it doesn't usually live up to the expectations. I've celebrated many New Year's, and then even during the evening or the next day, thinking back is like, wow, that wasn't really that special, right? It's supposed to be the best year of the day of the year, but it hardly ever turns out that way. Because again, the expectations are so high that everybody's going to have a great time. And it doesn't always happen that way. And then when these days are gone, or even during these days, because of these expectations, because of the pressures, because we are sometimes forced into doing things that we don't really want to do. For example, people who prefer to be alone, but because of the social pressure, feel that they should be somewhere else. We can actually feel empty during these days. We can feel that while we are there, we feel pressure, we feel energy being sucked up, and even afterwards, right, when it's gone, maybe it wasn't as good as we expected it to be, or maybe it's just, now what are we left to look forward for the rest of the year? So much of our happiness, of our contentness, of our inner mental state depends on these few days that we put on ourselves. We have to ask ourselves why, what's really happening. So let's dive into it first with what is loneliness really, right? And loneliness is really this kind of sense of sadness or distress when we have our expectations or our desires, our social desires, are mismatching with reality, right? When, for example, somewhere deep inside of us, we prefer to be with people, yet because of circumstances, we are not able to do so. And that gives us sadness because we feel that there's something lacking, right? Because there's something that we should have and we don't have. Again, that's where the discipline of desire comes into play, where the Stoics teach us to accept where you are right now and to make sure that your desires of living a good life don't depend on these externals. Because for whatever reason, we could spend the holidays alone. It can happen. We could just be alone certain times of the year, and then it's up to us to make sure that it doesn't affect us as much as it should, and that we kind of balance out that mismatch between our desires of what we want with social interactions and the actual reality of that we have. Being alone doesn't mean that you are not social or not loved. It just depends on the circumstances that you're in. Now, um, when we think about what, again, when we go a little bit deeper about it, it isn't necessarily the absence of people, right? So being lonely isn't necessarily caused because there are no people around. We could be surrounded with hundreds of people and still feel very lonely, because when we don't have that connection that we make with those people, when we can't feel the same level of conversation, of thinking, or just being together and feeling comfortable and feeling safe, then even then we can feel completely lonely. So it doesn't depend on whether there are people or not. It just depends on how we feel within the setting that we are, whether we feel safe or comfortable, whether we feel that we can have a good conversation. And again, this also depends on whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. All these things, have an impact. For an introvert, it costs so much energy to be socially active. So then when it's not your crowd, it's even more difficult. And then you burn out faster even during that evening or during the day. When you're an extrovert, you need to be there. You need to have those interactions to give you that energy, to feed yourself from it. But if they're not there, then it might just be, you might look at it as a waste of time, or you feel the lack of that energy. So why is it so difficult, right, during those days? Because again, we build up that vision, that dream, and especially when we have had very good experiences in the back of in the past, we tend to romanticize those. We tend to forget about the negative things that happen on days like this in the past and only look at the great things. And that adds to those expectations that we have for what's coming up. And this sense of misalignment can also come because of the tension that we build within ourselves. If we're not very comfortable with who we are, where we are in our lives, if we're looking back at our past with regrets, or if we're just not sure about the future, and we can't really keep ourselves focused on the present, then that tension within us will also create a sense of discomfort and of loneliness. And sometimes it's easier to be with people, to be distracted, to forget about what you're dealing with. And then when you're alone, especially during these days, it can really put a lot of pressure on your thoughts, your problems, where you're here. And then the self-talk, the inner discourse can become negative and will just overstimulate those feelings that we already have. But we have to remember that we can be forced to being alone, right? We can be alone because of work. We could be alone because of travel. We could be alone because of whatever circumstances there are, and yet we still have this from whatever circumstances there are, and yet we can still, even though in those situations, we can still find ways to be content, find ways to be at peace with ourselves, and even change our mindset, change our mentality towards these days, if we're alone, to make the best of it. And that's all that is asked of us in life. Life is difficult for many reasons. We're all struggling. Everybody's having difficult times in their own way, and for us, it's just to try to make the best out of it. And that's something that we can all do. So let's see how we can kind of reframe um, our mindset towards these days. And to do that, let's compare just quickly. Like we have the loneliness, right? From when we think about loneliness, we think about restlessness. We think about feeling uneasy, feeling that we should be doing something else. It's a lot about comparison, right? This is where social media can become a very difficult. This is where social media can become a very difficult element in our lives, because during these days, especially during these days, we can see people posting pictures of, oh, look how wonderful it looks. You know, we have all the decorations up, we have all the family together. Everybody is smiling on the pictures. Why? Because we've just been trained to, when someone says picture, we have to smile. But we don't see what's happening before or after these pictures. But then again, when we are lonely, we see those pictures. That has a very strong impact on our mental state. So maybe during those days, it's best to kind of keep your social media accounts away. Or when you look at it, think like, wow, they're having a good time. I'm here, I'm doing what I can, but they're enjoying themselves and I'm happy for them. It's very difficult to do so, but it's something that we could try. But we have these comparisons, right? So from loneliness, we're thinking about restlessness, we're thinking about loneliness, and then we add that self judgment on it, saying like, "Oh, look at me! I'm poor. I'm sad. I'm here by myself." All of these things we add upon that, right? But if we can work from a place of solitude, where we can turn this around and say, "Okay, I'm not lonely. I'm in solitude. I'm at peace." And this can happen when we accept ourselves for who we are, when we accept the situation for what it is. Again, we go back to the discipline of desire. When we look at, this is where I am right now, I'm going to make the best of it. We can try to be calm. We can use it for self-reflection, to find some peace, to come back to ourselves. Or we can also, and this is really fed by an understanding, right? If we know who we are, if we know what the values are, if we know what is important for us, so then we can build upon that solitude. And when we have this sense of solitude, we can face these days stronger than when we are just working from loneliness and being sad about being alone. But solitude doesn't necessarily being alone, it just feels being connected with yourself. And that's where we come to an interesting paradox that the Stoics have, and why this connection with the self is key. And Seneca talks in one of his letters, he says, the wise person is content by being alone, not that he shies away from connections or social interactions. No, whenever he is alone or she is alone, that's fine, right? We can still be content. And that comes from knowing who you are, having a deep self examination, the acceptance that we talked about. And the interesting thing is, and this is where a kind of a paradox comes around, is that the more and the stronger we connected with ourselves, we are instantly stronger and more open to the connection with the world around us, because we can come from we can come from a point of peace. We can come from a point of balance, and we can see the world for what it is. And we don't have these external needs and desires to fit in or belong or this. We will belong naturally to the world around us. We can see people for who they are. We can accept them. We can endure them. Why? Because we come from a strong sense of foundation. And that's what the Stoics say. The Stoics say that we have been given a part of this nature. We are part of nature, but we have been given part of God, providence, nature, and this is our reason and logic. And the better we can use this, the better we can become aligned with the nature around us and thus connected with everything. So it all starts with this self connectedness. From there, we can expand. And the great thing about this is then we can also find other social groups where we could even where we could feel that we belong, where we could feel we could fit in, because we know who we are and what we bring to the table, and we can find groups that fit us. But during these special days, and if you have the chance, there are many, this is where the good thing about social media comes into play. There are apps like Meetup, like other things, where you can find groups who organize gatherings, who create group meetings for people to join, to not be alone. So those are the things available as well. But don't do that because you are escaping or running towards them. Do it because from you coming from a sense of peace and inner calm, that you know who you are and you prefer to spend it with other people. It is good to socialize, and that's, Stoic philosophy is very pro-social. But it shouldn't come at a cost where it feels like you have to do things, or where you have to give yourself up, or where you have to make too many concessions of who you are as a person. In those cases, it is better to be by yourself and in solitude, but in line and balanced with who you are as a person. So let's refrain these holidays when we look at it, right? A lot of the times when we look at the holidays, we have these ideas of like, we should be happy, right? We should have a great time. We should be surrounded by all of our loved ones, and we should feel grateful and happy that we are here. But these are all shoulds, right? We're not sure that we're going to spend the holidays with our loved ones or with all of our loved ones, or maybe some specific ones that are left out. Maybe we aren't as happy. Maybe there's some conflict during the holiday that will ruin it all. So instead of having these shoulds there, we should focus more on the reality of what it is. We should focus on, if we get to spend the time with the loved ones or with the people that we want to spend it with, be grateful. Really spend the time with them. Give them your attention. Make the best of it. And if things boil up, if conflicts arise, make sure that you at least do your best to let it go, pass it on, pass it away, and not focus too much on it, but make sure that you are grateful for being there with those people around you. And if you are alone, refrain your mindset to rest, to finding a good moment for reflection, because that's what these moments are about. Christmas, especially New Year's, when we are trying to reflect, when we have a specific date where we can turn the calendar, turn the page, literally, and we can use that for reflection. So if you find yourself alone in these days, give yourself some questions, some prompts, some journaling, some other activities to do, to reflect, to ponder about who you are, where you are, what you were doing last year, and what you might want to change or where you want to make progress towards. And as we had said in the previous, how we refrain the holidays, we should be grateful. But here in this sense, feel grateful, right? Feel gratitude for where you are in the present, and accept it, love it, where you are right now. Again, this is very difficult to do, especially during those holidays when we see people having so much fun and doing all these great things on our social media accounts. And if you're struggling with that, turn them off. Don't look at them. Why make it more difficult for yourself? But also accept the fact that, hey, this is life. This is what, we're going through. This is the situation that we're in, and make the best of it. If you really don't want to be alone, see if you can find social groups. See if you can find some gatherings where you can enjoy, maybe even just for a little bit. And otherwise, just try to accept who you are, where you are, and enjoy the solitude. Make the best of it. And again, this is a difficult time for some people. Other people, they love it. Myself, I like it. I don't mind being alone. I don't mind being with people. I'm not sure yet what's going to happen this year, but I will make the best of it as I've done all these years. And this Stoic practice really helps me to deal with the situation where I'm in. But for now, thank you very much. And if you are struggling with these moments, if you don't know how to respond to feelings of loneliness or how to turn that into solitude where you find yourself, you can always book a free consultation for Stoic coaching on our website via stoica.com. You can find all other articles, all other helps, or just reach out to us, send us a message so we can see how we can help you. But for now, thank you very much for listening. And we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Like and subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you usually tend to do during the holidays and how you deal with loneliness. And for now, I want to wish everybody the best time during the holidays, wherever you are, how you spend it, whatever holidays you celebrate. And we hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to the Via Stoica podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review. Your feedback will help us reach more like-minded people on the journey to self-improvement. If you want to get in touch with us or find more information, you can go to viastoica.com, your one-stop platform for all things Stoicism and living better. And remember, virtue is the only good.